Hey, everybody. Welcome out to Progressive. Thanks for coming tonight to talk about UX. I hope you're excited. We have a fabulous guest speaker. I'm Mark Majors.
And I'm battling sinuses, but no, I'm Ben Woods.
And we're happy that you came here tonight for UXDX Neo. This is our first event, and we're very happy that Progressive let their space and their energy to help tonight. And we've been talking about this for, I don't know how long, bringing back to Progressive a UX event. I don't know if anybody knows this, but I was just talking to some people in the audience. Jeff Janis, actually, if you remember that name, he started the first UX meetup in Cleveland back in 2002 at Progressive. So we thought, hey, let's bring it back to Progressive. Let's talk about UX. Let's bring people together. And it's been exciting to do this again.
Yeah, and I remember that meeting, which was my introduction to user experience and abilities. So excited to bring this back, and I think we're really excited about having a nice, sustained, continuing UX organization in Northeast Ohio.
Exactly. Round of applause. There's that. We're going to turn it over to Craig Kistler, who's going to lead us tonight in our discussions. So let's give a nice big round of applause again.
Thank you. So yeah, getting started. Cool. So yeah, thanks for inviting me out. Designing for everyone. Sounds responsible. It sounds inclusive. It sounds smart. But in practice, it often creates something else. It creates safe design. And safe design rarely moves anyone forward. Tonight, I want to walk through some simple shifts that changed how I think about UX and personalization. You've all been in this meeting. Someone says, we need to highlight financing. We need to highlight the promo. What about delivery options? Insurance is probably some sort of new feature or something coming out, and everybody wants their feature on the page. The debate drags on and on, not because any of these people are wrong most of the time, but it's because we're asking one page to solve all these different situations. How many of you have been in that meeting? I mean, all the time. And how many of you have actually won the argument? Page hierarchy, got to be usable, only to come back 6 months later and have the same damn argument again. It's always happening. The problem is we don't disagree. The problem is we're debating about the page as opposed to the visitor's situation. So who the hell am I and why am I talking about this? Some of you know my story. For those who don't, I've been in this too long, so I'm going to keep it really short. I started in visual design right at the dawn of the internet. And then I moved into UX, some creative resume writing, and maybe a fib or two to get me my first UX job. And then 20 years ago, I started and moved into Progressive. Worked here for a couple of years. And that's where it started to click for me. It was the first time that I understood how critical user experience was to the job the customer was trying to do. It wasn't about how something looks, important, but I still needed to get that person to take that next action. From there, I bounced around, led UX teams. I made it over to Signet Jewelers, who at the time was called Sterling Jewelers, and I thought was a mom and pop jewelry store. And I turned them down as they kept calling and calling until I figured out that they were the parent company of everyone's favorite mall jewelry store. So I took the job and I started there in UX. We brought in a tool to do A/B testing, and I started to shift my passion to experimentation, figuring user experience and experimentation works really well together, and I can get better A/B wins if I just solve usability problems. And then I looked at data and said, what if I tied data into this? Then we started spinning into personalization. Different disciplines, same pattern. When the UX of the site or when the UX of a page is weak, nothing works. And here's the part that surprised me. It usually wasn't weak because the design was bad. It was weak because our priorities were misaligned. So across all those roles, design, experimentation, personalization, I kept seeing the same thing. We were designing good interfaces, but we were designing them for the wrong moment. The hierarchy could be great, the layout could be strong, but the experience didn't match what the person was trying to do in that moment. It failed. And here's why that keeps happening. When we don't know who we're designing for in the moment, we default to something that feels responsible. We default to safe. Safe includes everything. The financing, the new offer, the new service, the promo. We have to have chat. Everybody needs chat. The floating head. All of these things matter primarily to somebody inside of the business. Internally, everything has an owner and everyone has a KPI. So no one wants to remove their piece from the page. Safe design is design that tries to support everyone internally. When everything is important, nothing is important. So this is a pretty typical PDP page for K. I'm gonna try and get my mouse over here. We're supposed to scroll. So we're having some technical difficulties. So use your imagination. On this page, we're talking about sale 3 times. The strike through doesn't give you enough. You have to have the badge and the 30% off little token. Scrolling down the page further, you've got financing options. You've got ratings and reviews. You've got urgency messaging, shipping info, return policies, recommendations, badges, trust signals. The list goes on and on and on. Individually, I need my mouse back. Individually, every one of these things, most of the time, makes sense. Collectively, we've just dumped all of our crap on the customer and said, good luck. There's really nothing missing from this page other than maybe asking, should this page be solving all these problems at once? Once I stopped saying, does this page need to solve all these problems? Things started to change. The questions started to shift from what should be on the page and what should be included to what does the person need right now? Let's step away from a website for a minute. Imagine you're running an ice cream stand. Same ice cream, same menu, but all the people showing up have very different situations. Some are just browsing. Do I want ice cream or do I want to hit the bakery next door? Some want a recommendation. They've decided on ice cream, but they want to know your newest flavor. They want to know what's popular, what's seasonal. Some already know what they want. I want a chocolate cone. And others are in a hurry, just want to run in, grab something, and get out. And here's the thing. If you handed all those people the same vanilla ice cream cone, they wouldn't be mad, but you really didn't help them either. The same thing's happening with our websites today. So I'm not talking about preferences. I'm not talking about taste. I'm talking about what's happening in that moment. At the ice cream stand, browsers need exposure. They want to know your newest flavor. They want you to help guide them in what you're doing and make the choice easier than going across the street to get bakery. Deciders need help choosing. They know they want ice cream, but you've got 32 different flavors. Help me decide. I'm not an ice cream expert. Confident buyers want speed. These are your repeat visitors. They're coming in, give them ice cream, give them chocolate, and move out the door. And rushed buyers want simplicity. This is the person that's coming in, grabbing and going, paying, and they're out. Same product, same business, very different situations. That's what's missing from a lot of UX. We design the stand, we design the menu, but we don't adapt the situation to solve the problem the person's having in that moment. So good UX isn't about giving everyone more options. It's about giving them the right options at the right time. Coming back to this page. Let's see if it scrolls this time. No, sir. Again, use your imagination. Side note, have you ever used Gamma? It's like the AI version of PowerPoint. So I use Gamma for the first time. Don't do that again. I did practice. I did do this on different screens and it scrolled. I promise it scrolled. It's like it wants to scroll. Yeah. Anyway, this page, it's fixed. It's a static page. And it's the same for everyone. Somebody who's exploring, deciding, committing, it's the same page. The person is changing. Their situation is changing. The page, it doesn't. This is how we were trained to think in UX design. Think about the hierarchy. What's the most important thing? Focus on that. Make sure the call to action is clear. All these best practices, in theory, work. They're not taking into account the person's situation. So what if this page could respond to somebody in the situation? What if it could be a page? I need my lunch. What if it could be a page that changes with the situation and not a redesign, not a new layout? Just what if we could emphasize the shifts based on what a visitor is needing in that moment? The next examples kind of go into that. These are ideas that I have tested and run A/B tests at American Greeting. Oh, geez, that's going way back. At Signet Jewelers, or some ideas that we're looking to test here in the future. I'm not even going to go over there. It's not going to scroll, which is unfortunate because this is when I need it to. Anyway, we get a lot of traffic coming from paid shopping, Google shopping, PLAs. And the idea internally was people who go to Google shopping, type engagement ring, come to K Jewelers, they're immediately ready to purchase. They're not. The data shows that they're going to bounce. They're going back. They're pogo sticking. They're going back and forth. But internally, we were just pushing. Buy, buy, buy. They're just browsing. They're not ready. The job of UX was to give them confidence that K was the right site to buy their engagement ring, whether or not you like this ring or not. At the bottom of this page, where all the product details and all the specs and all the reviews are, it was a PDP. Its job was to sell the product. But we knew this might not be right for somebody. They came in, they may have liked the sparkles, which are hard to see now. Apologize. But there's something about that in Google Shopping that drew their click. So instead of having them bounce back to Google, what we did at the bottom of the page is we took all that extra stuff and just collapsed it behind an accordion. And below that, we put product recs that looked like a PLP, 6 rows. So we basically combined a PDP and a PLP, or emulated Google Shopping, because we knew that somebody had the idea, like they're thinking about buying a gift or an engagement ring. How do we help them find something that is more suited for them? So we did that. We put it at the bottom. page started performing. People stayed on the site, they didn't bounce back to Google. So we didn't worry about conversion. We just wanted them to fall in love with the product. They made one additional click, and it made all the difference in the world. In this situation, now they're narrowing it down. Now they've said, okay, K is the right site for me. This person's closer to their decision. They've already done some work. They know they're getting an engagement ring. They like this one, but now they're asking themselves a different question. Is this ring the best option for me? Is this ring a good decision? So in this case, they didn't need more choices. They needed reassurance. So on the left, we've got the payment options because everybody needs a lower payment. It goes down further and all the metal options. We decided what would happen if we just took out the payment options and said why people choose this ring. Don't force them to scroll down in the details. Don't force them to scroll down into the description. Bring it right to the top. They can immediately see it. It's a strong center presence, maximum sparkle, vintage inspired. All things that people looking to make a decision need to know. We surfaced it right at the top. And then this final situation, building confidence. This is the guy that walks into the ice cream shop, wants to grab something and runs out. They've already decided. Get the hell out of their way. Why are we throwing more stuff at them? So all the stuff is on the page, sandwiched in between what you need to care about on the ring. Below this was, like I had mentioned, chat. We talked about promos for other products on a different page when they're trying to decide. So instead of doing that, what if this page just changed all that, removed it all, and it's just peeking out over here? We moved the delivery date and free returns for 30 days above the add to cart button. We just want to remove friction. The thing that's holding them up is, can I return this if my fiance doesn't like the ring? Make it easy for them. Same product, same page, same design system. What changed was how we chose to emphasize the messaging for the situation. This isn't personalization in the creepy sense. We didn't guess who the user was. We responded to what they were trying to do. Each version reduced the friction for an individual in the situation they were experiencing in that moment. When you're able to capture that moment and match that moment, the visitor does less thinking. The next step to them feels obvious. Their confidence rises, and when their confidence rises, so does conversion. But mind you, conversion is just a signal. It's not the goal. It improves because it doesn't improve because the page is simpler. It improves because the messaging is clearer. Good UX isn't about removing friction everywhere. It's about removing unnecessary friction. When we guide, when guidance is needed, when we clarify when decisions matter, and when we get out of the way, when someone is ready, that's usability. That's better UX. This is usually the point where people start thinking, wow, this is going to be complicated. It doesn't need to be. You don't need a new platform. You don't need a CDP. You don't need a redesign, and you don't need perfect data. It requires better decisions about what to emphasize. It brings us back to UX. Nothing we've talked about replaces UX fundamentals. It actually makes them more important. Hierarchy matters more. Timing matters more. Restraint matters more. The situations don't replace design judgment. It gives it something to work with. Once you start thinking this way, it becomes really hard to go back. The shift isn't from UX to personalization. It's from designing pages to support, it's about designing pages to support situations. Pages are static. Situations change and are fluid. When you're designing for situations, relevancy improves. When relevancy improves, UX improves. And when UX improves, again, conversion follows. But this is the point where it usually starts to break down. In my experience, most teams don't really have a UX problem. They have a prioritization problem. All of this stuff is supposed to be on the page. We have plenty of content. We lack focus. Because when we're designing new pages, we're being asked to show everything because they're important to the business. When we design for the situations, instead, we are able to emphasize what really matters. That's the difference between generic UX and better UX. The confident buyer, confident visitor, doesn't need more information. They need speed, they need reassurance, and they need fewer interruptions. If you're walking into the store and you get a pop-up, it's frustration. You don't need that, you're ready to buy. Helping in this instance means get out of the way. The right thing at the wrong moment is friction. A friend of mine, he's also the founder of Made with Intent, which is a tool that takes the situation stuff and puts it on steroids. Great tool. Anyway, my friend David Manheim likes to say something that I believe is incredibly important. He says design for stages, not pages. And he's right. All right, this framing has moved this conversation in my head and a lot of people's heads forward in a really big way. But I think there's something he's missing. I don't think it's stages instead of pages. I think it's stages and pages. Customers are moving through stages as they're going through your site, but they're experiencing pages. The page doesn't disappear, it needs to adapt. Pages should flex based off of the stage or the situation the person's in. Stages explain behavior, and pages will deliver that experience. Across all of these patterns and these examples I've shown, the pattern is the same. The experience stopped assuming, it responded to the situation, and it reduced unnecessary thinking. We didn't optimize pages, we optimized moments. You don't need a brand new process to do this. You just need to start asking better questions. And here's what actually changes when you design for the moment. Teams argue less, in theory, still argue. They argue less because the debate isn't about preferences anymore. It's not about my thing needs to be at the top or my thing needs to be above the fold, which if I have to hear again one more time, seriously. The debate goes away because now it's about what the person needs right in the moment. The experience gets clearer. It's anchored in a situation. It's not anchored on a feature. Decisions get easier, both internally and from a customer standpoint, because you're no longer trying to make this thing work for everyone. And that's where UX starts feeling aligned, both from a customer and internally. A simple way to think about this is just ask, what does the person need right now? Don't ask who they are demographically, not what you want them to do. You need to ask what they need to move forward confidently. And if you answer that question and get your teams to answer that question honestly, UX decisions get a lot simpler. Now, the good news is you don't need a whole lot to do this. You don't need perfect data. You don't need a customer to log in. You don't need a CDP, as I mentioned. You've already got these signals. It's your data on your site, your analytics. This stuff's telling you these things already. What channel are they coming from? We use the Google Shopping. People with return visits versus new visits. Category depth. How deep are they going? How many pages are they looking at? Are they looking at the same thing? Are they clicking on financing? If they're clicking on financing, then emphasize financing. If they're not, get it away. There's all kinds of data on your site that you could pull and look at and wrap a situation around and think, why would somebody need this information? It's not identity. It's stuff you already have. And that's a great starting point. If you take one thing away from all this jabber that I've been doing, it's this. Stop designing pages and start supporting stages. As I mentioned, 20 years ago, I started working at Progressive. It's where I really seriously understood the value of UX. People aren't clicking around the websites for fun. They got a job to do and they're trying to get it done. Over time and working across design, experimentation, and personalization, I saw one pattern continue to show up. When we design pages, we're debating layouts. When we're designing for situation, we're reducing friction. When UX supports the situation a person's in, clarity improves, confidence improves, and conversion follows as a side effect. I'll end on this. The next time a UX debate starts or stalls, don't ask, what should the page look like? Ask, what does the person need right now? So with that, Mark, Ben, thank you for inviting me back to Progressive to be the first speaker at UXDX Neo. I was going to say Cleveland, but so if any of this resonated, you agree, violently disagree, yes, sir.
So you talked about where would you start? You know, you're going to ask, you know, what are the needs? You're going to do that. You're doing A/B testing, which is great. But within your organization, did it start with A/B testing? Is that where you started? You said, hey, we're gonna test some variables, or how did you get people to switch to that mindset? Because it seems like you're still going through it a little bit now. People are still saying, I want that on the page, and you're trying to say, well, actually, you need to be thinking about their needs.
Yeah. Remember when I said it stops arguments?
Okay.
That was kind of a hope. I've been at Signet 13 years and I have the same damn arguments all the time. Where it starts is truly thinking about the experience. When I started, I was doing UX. And we've got tens of thousands of products. It's insanely difficult to find anything. It's just hard. People don't know what they want. They don't know what it's called. They don't know what it looks like. So trying to find something in useful, it's just a mess. We would, and we still do this, so we're not perfect. The homepage, which nobody goes to, but just let's take that for an example, right? The homepage would always have a hero talking about engagement. It's bridal season, spring's bridal season. I've been married forever. I don't need an engagement ring. Why is that page talking to me about engagement? So now I'm forced to ignore that page, find something else, and move on. So what I started with was, hey, this page could be more usable, more beneficial to a situation if we started thinking about there's people who need engagement rings, and there's people that need anything but engagement rings. We called it fashion. That's where we started. We A/B tested that and said, okay, if we put engagement up to people who we know who've seen engagement before, searched, come in on search, well, there's a number of different ways to figure that out. Versus people who we know purchase an engagement ring, don't need an engagement ring, search on watches, and gave them something different. Guess what? It performed better. That became our first macro segment, engagement and fashion. From there, we started looking at people who were looking at discounts, coming in from affiliates, changing the filter set from low to high to low. right? Those are all signals that we just started building and started running experiments. Because it's like, we could assume that somebody coming in who wants engagement, sees an engagement homepage, we made it better. But if that worked for everybody, that's just a lot of work for nothing, right? So we'd always A/B test these segments. So how we got started was simple, very simple. We had 4 segments, 4 macros. And then we used that data to prove the case from a value perspective. You want this on the homepage and you want this on the homepage. Guess what? You both can have it on the homepage. You don't have to rotate it every 3 days. That's how we started.
Thank you. That's a great example. So it sounds like you went for something that had a lot of traffic. And also, because that always seems to be a challenge with A/B testing. If you try to choose something that's deep, it's going to take longer to run there. So you went high up and then you had a big audience and then you were able to really come up with those macros.
Yeah. Yeah. We still get people asking about smaller slices of that, like somebody who's into Halo. I don't care, right? Like maybe they're into Halo, maybe they're not, but it's a smaller pool.
You're talking Halo video game.
No. No. Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. It's really great. I'm just curious, do you have any advice for, folks to getting their teams on board? It's got to be a different way to roll that out, but now that you've lived through phase 1 or phase 2, I don't know where you are with that process. Any advice for the changes in the team?
Yeah, we're actually pretty mature, even though we do argue about it a lot. It is really true. Like when you're designing for stages, it makes all the difference in the world because that one page now has the ability to do a whole lot. Would I start there? No. I mean, depending on the team, I was lucky. I was able, because UX was my background, and when I shifted into experimentation and personalization, nobody else on my team was. And we were talking, it was we had a UX team and they would run usability testing and they'd come out and say this was right. And then I would run it as an A/B test and everything they said was wrong. I mean, it wasn't wrong. It was a lab, right? So, it's like, it's not, things change when you're at home and your dog's puking and your kids are crying. You got to just make this purchase. So for us, we were just able to try stuff. We're like, look, it's just a test. What is it going to hurt? Right? If you're really concerned, we'll run it at 20%. 80% will see your thing and 20% will see this. And we just slowly built it up over time. It was a lot of acting dumb. Hey, we think this is going to work and just try it. Kind of a trust us idea. And then when we were wrong, we said we were wrong. But yeah, we just started really small and just snowballed that into something else. When I started this 8 years ago, doing experimentation, it was just me and a UX person. So we would do the designs and we'd run it. So if you have the ability to run an A/B test from a UX perspective, it's the best thing in the world. Because now you can actually add value and revenue to your designs. The UX team that I have now, their biggest challenge with previous leadership was they're like, how do we get anything approved? We don't have value. Well, you do, but they had value. With the work they were doing, they're having a hard time showing the business case and showing value. Well, now you can. Run as an A/B test, A versus B. If B wins, I can measure incremental all day long. There's your business case. That's what worked for us the most significantly.
Especially with the, because I imagine you have for a lot of users, you have a pretty long sales cycle there where they're recycling multiple times in a large purchase or big proposal.
Yeah.
Have you had any signals that people are getting like disoriented or anything by the page changing based on the versions that are coming?
It's a great question. It's one of the things when we first started this that we were really concerned about was just these jarring experiences. So 2 things. One, if you fall into the experiment, you stay in the experiment. So you're not flip-flopping in and out. When we start adapting and changing the pages, we work really hard we like to think about it as emphasizing and de-emphasizing. When we first started this, we were designing things where things would move. You know, like stuff would go on top, stuff would go on bottom. I did show an example where we actually moved
Like
something.
Board financing was at the top last time. What the hell was it?
It's one of those things where we're kind of testing into. That example, that particular example hasn't been run yet. So I don't know. If it were up to me, financing wouldn't go up there at all. That's a debate we're still having. The data says it doesn't need to be there. But it is something that we're really concerned about, because what we don't want to do is have somebody change their situation from one page to the next and the whole UI is blown up. And it's a completely different UX. So it's one of those, it's a challenging thing. So we're looking at ways just to like make things a little bit bigger, maybe make them stand out a little bit more versus shifting things all around. The only one example was that Google Shopping one. That was a whole blow up. But if you went from that page to a new PDP, your page was right back to normal.
Yeah.
It had to have that parameter.
Interesting. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I have a question. So the gist of what I got from your presentation and makes sense coming from a UX background is I think you kind of like took it back to the basics where you were trying to prevent cognitive overload while accounting for diverse use case scenarios for this jewelry e-commerce website.
Right.
My question would be, in terms of experimentation, how does qualitative research, you talked about A/B testing. It seems like some of this stuff could be also done through qualitative research, discovery research. Is that
So it kind of goes to what I was talking about a little bit ago. So when I was responsible for UX, we did a lot of usability testing and qual and all of that. Around 2019, 2020, org changes. We had a chief digital officer come in and she brought a bunch of people with her. It's totally fine. She brought in an SVP of experience design and he had his own philosophy. He did a lot of research. I got to stop doing that.
Research.
Yeah, they asked a lot of people's opinions. It wasn't like, there's nothing wrong with that, but they weren't actually asking usability tasks. It was like, well, how does this make you feel? Don't care. I mean, I really don't. Like, it needs to work. So that goes to the point of they would say, this was the experience that is going to work best because they did qual. And then I would run the experiment. And every single one of their things that work failed. There wasn't a single one. So they were asking, it's valid. I'm not trying to discount it. It's valid. Org changes, org shifts, SVP, he's gone. A lot of the people that came with him are gone. XD now reports back to me. So the way we're looking at this is we're getting back to usability testing. Is this usable? Does this make sense? Do you understand it? And then we can run the experiment. It's taking that subjective, how do you feel about it, out of it, and making sure that they're usable first, and then putting it in front of them. That's kind of what we've been doing up until now. I'm not saying one's right or wrong. I just know that doing it the other way, they were spending a lot of time, and then we didn't go with their designs anyway. Yes.
I want to go on that for a little bit, and my team members, I apologize in advance because that might get close to home. So Lynn brought up qualitative research, and then I believe your example talking about what I like to call desires, right? Intent. So if you're talking about the intent,
Yes.
how do you figure that out? Because I just want to like level set, when we say things like user research, when we say things like UX, we're there to support business goals and ensure that what we're building or being asked to build is usable. Okay. We all know that we could drive a car on flat tires. It's totally usable. It's not safe. It's usable.
Right.
And so I'm trying to get my team to try to separate some of that desirability, because that's usually what the business wants to understand. They don't care if it's usable or not. There's a lot of philosophy in this company where we look at something and say, if only 1% finishes the task, that's 1% more conversion that I didn't have. And so those are the problems that we face.
what we get in the lab is they want to know why the person showed up there. They want to understand why they're there. So Mark's been doing a really great job working with some of the business areas, to try to get market research involved and then pair up there. How are you guys handling understanding it? Because I'm confident that you're getting the usability part of it down, right?
Sure.
That's your job.
Yep.
But when we talk about UX,
Mhm.
conversation starts to get into a gray area. That's not really our practice area.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think I'm glad you mentioned intent. I intention
It was on your slide, so.
because that's what we talk. We talk a lot about intent. Made with intent. Like as mentioned, they're pulling data and helping us figure that out. But when we started, we didn't have any of that, so we went really simple. When we started thinking about intent, was like, how likely is this person to buy in this session? We started as elementary as you could get. Page views. Under 6 was low, 6 to 15 was medium, more than 15 was high. Now, you could argue that more than 15 pages, maybe you have a usability problem, you can't find stuff, which I already mentioned you can't, but we did, whatever. I think it was your point, the life cycles, right? So we knew that was part of it as well. So we just started there. As we started kind of going deeper and deeper, we started working more closely with marketing, trying to figure out, okay, well, what is your marketing doing? Going back to that PLA example, marketing thought they're ready to buy. They weren't. The data showed something completely different. So it's trying to understand that experience from the standpoint of like, okay, well, what is this person trying to do? What's the job in the moment that they're trying to get done? And then helping others understand that to make them more effective. Marketing is sending stuff, marketing likes social traffic. I don't know why. It bounces a lot. So our job, when we think about it from an experience standpoint, and when I think about it from a personalization standpoint, is okay, most likely this person is going to bounce because they're coming from Instagram, they're doom scrolling, they're not in the mood to shop. How can I build on that experience? How can I get them to make one more click? How can I stop them from just bouncing? That's the job. That's what we're trying to do. It improves marketing, reduces the bounce rate. So it's really kind of tying all those things together. It's not just usability. I mean, that's table stakes. It's hierarchy, it's messaging, it's understanding the original intent of that person coming in, and how can you message them? How can you help them in that moment? That's kind of how we're handling it. Mhm.
And I've had some great relationships with marketing in my past, the way I live, getting out of it. I'm gonna pick on a story. A long time ago, I was working on a game that was targeted towards kids. And this background was on my first something. I'm gonna go back to the reason why I'm thinking something. It is. Bungie was in the office. They had a lot of kids. They play tested the game. The Bungie kids loved it. They loved this game. It was great. They were enjoying it. The original marketing message, which is what big kids get. They go to an E3, they get some buzz. It's doing something with the Xbox hardware and everything. The marketing that came out for it was literature. It totally changed what they were trying to sell. We designed it so that the Bungie kids would love it. And it was a kids game, it was marketed as that. It would have done a lot better. Now it beat the initial expectations. But at the end, it was seen as a failure because it didn't live up to being like the next Halo. Because the marketing message kind of changed and they didn't come back to us. Right? And we didn't go there. The whole time we tested only the kids. That's what we were supposed to be marketing to. And then they marketed to adults. So it goes back to the intent and the design, how it could have been designed differently or the ads could have been different. Now I'm going to pick on progressive, right? Progressive, if you go to that, I think we're awesome. If you're a single driver with a single car and you want auto insurance right now, you're ready to buy. Great experience. Wonderful. If, however, you have a couple of kids who are about ready to turn 16, you're thinking about buying that new car, and you just want to get an idea of what the pain was going to be to your wallet, you have to put a lot of information in. Probably more than you want to get a real quote, an accurate quote, and really deep. And guess what? We really want you to buy, so we push you to a buy instead of saying, here's an estimate, you can stop right here, right? You can pick up later, get more details. So that's something we're trying to work out. Right, this sort of that, and it does go back sometimes to intent because the marketing message. Yeah, what do you hear all the time from all of the insurance companies? bundle, right? Bundle, the more you buy, the more you save. Can you really do that? Like, who does a good bundling experience? Google, Amazon, you could load things up, right? So many shopping experiences. Can't do that a lot with insurance, right? You gotta buy separate, you gotta go different flows, you gotta answer all these questions. So marketing keeps telling college customers, do this, go this experience bundle. What's one of the worst experiences? Trying to buy multiple insurance products at once.
Yeah.
So stick it on there.
But I think that, I mean,
Knowing what people want to do.
I mean, like, I'm just, my mind's already spinning like, okay, and I'm sure you guys have done the same thing. Like, how do you solve that problem? Right? How do you solve the problem of marketing saying,
It's like, what are you looking for today? I want to click on these things. If you look like you want to go to a bundle experience, somebody else is doing that, not us right now. They actually do pretty well. Page. But that's something potentially you could do. Again, like there's the signals how they come in, but I think sometimes we just ask up front. You know, video games again, have you ever played stuff with difficulty level you want to get? What's your experience?
one of the things that we tested multiple times and every time was insanely successful was we asked a question. We just asked them what the hell they wanted. We did it when they first came in, like, what are you shopping for? And then we personalized the experience. We did it on PDPs during holiday, and we said, are you shopping for a gift? If you said no, the little thing went away, no harm, no foul. Oddly enough, when they said no, they still were more likely to convert because we asked them. If they said yes, we dropped it down and said, who are you shopping for? Him, for her, for yourself? Just ask. It's crazy what happens. Yeah.
Do you remember Libby?
No, it's that. Come on, right?
Because of the design thing, because Libby was trying and did it the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
It's trying to say, again, it's always interrupting because it was being too intentional, and trying to too much mind reading. And asking it the wrong way. So asking questions are good, but there's the way. Don't be clicky. But sometimes up front, when you ask just to set the experience that you're not out of the way, it's a little bit of a guideline. You over there, we're over here, put this.
So I'll wrap, and then I know you've been trying to ask a question. I'll get right. So but to that point, what we're doing now, and that's part of some of the stuff that Made with Intent helps us with. It's part of the stuff that you could look at when you're scrolling down a page. Insurance is going to be a little different, right? There's not these long product listing pages. We have long product listing pages. We've got 5,000 earrings. Like, it's just insane. We're starting to detect when somebody's in struggle mode, scrolling down, scrolling up, scrolling down, scrolling up. They don't use filters. They're not using navigation. They barely use search. So when they're showing signs of struggle, now we're dynamically inserting that question. Looks like you might need some help. And then we've got a couple different experiences within that. So it is not just sitting there screaming, I'm here, I'm here. It's trying to interject it when they need it so that it feels relevant and not just stuck there.
Yeah.
All right, now I'll go back in the corner.
Like the things that you showed in your example, one of them was that bringing it up front that like, why are people choosing that product? Right, and that one. And the other one, which we didn't see, but I don't understand. I also don't know what PLP means, by the way.
Sorry. Product listing page, your category page.
Okay, so what I got was that you're listing all of the, like, you were closing up the accordion of all the details of the product, and you were showing up, related products, a lot of listing all other rings that are there. Right?
Correct.
Which is a really good idea because I really want to see all the rings and smaller things so I can just pick up whatever I like instead of looking at the details of this one and seeing only 10 of them next, right? How did you come to that idea? Like you were saying, mostly analytics, you guys are looking at that. And so how, and market research is not giving you the answers. How did you come to that? That was a great idea.
That one in particular was we were spending a lot of money on Google Shopping. And when I looked at the data, they were spending a lot of money on it because they said the return on that spend was some of the highest that we saw. And then all of a sudden it started dropping and they were panicking. They couldn't figure out why. So they're like, what can we do? I don't know why they didn't look at the data. I looked at the data and they were bouncing. They weren't buying, they weren't ready to buy. The number of people that came in on a product from Google Shopping and then actually bought that product was like non-existent. They're going back, maybe they were finding another, like going on another page and then getting distracted and just getting lost. So marketing in the case that they were like, they're ready to buy because they're clicking on this product. No, they just gave us a signal they were ready to shop. So that's what we did. And when we saw they were bouncing, we're like, well, what's that experience look like? Oh, that's just like a category page of products. It's just on Google site. What if we did that on our own? So we started doing that, and then we started looking around. Wayfair does that really well. Target was doing it really well at the time. So there's something there, and we're like, this is enough to go on, and we did it, and it just continued to perform. We actually saw it then. We're like, all right, well, how else can we extend this? Because I already mentioned my dislike of social traffic. We said, well, what if social traffic saw this? Like, what if we put this on social? To your point, got rid of everything else and showed more product. And the nice thing was we were showing product that was visually similar. It wasn't all engagement rings. It was stuff that had a visual look, visual characteristic, like what they had clicked on. Maybe the one example that I was showing there was white gold. As you scroll down, there's that same exact ring in rose gold. Well, maybe it's that one. Or maybe it was the fact that it had the halo or something. There's something about it that made them like it. Why not show them more like that? That's how that idea came about. Yeah.
Once you started to develop that segmentation, are you still doing like A/B tests within that segment? I guess I'm kind of curious, maybe this is more of a tactical question, like once you feel comfortable with the segments, there's a little bit of like, are we cannibalizing one segment for another? Or people like started one and then say they buy an engagement ring, then they don't need it anymore. Like you're moving across segments, but I guess I'm curious if like you're still doing those multivariate tests within a segment to make sure that it's kind of like the best performer within that segment, or if you're still measuring against like a neutral control. I mean, again, maybe
It's
tactical, but
no, it's a lot. We do both. We've done a lot with our macros, so high, medium, and low intent, and then product intent. So we have a good idea of how they perform. So we'll test different treatments inside of that. So, hey, we'll do an A/B for engagement specific content. So if you're on an engagement category page, we found that actually breaking up the entire grid with other things that they might like to be effective. So we'll test different concepts like that for the same group, engagement shoppers. But if we don't have a good sense of, is this going to work for engagement shoppers? Is it going to work for fashion? We'll run that as an A/B against its own segment. So we'll say, all right, you're in that engagement segment. You're going to see the treatment and you're not. But then we'll also run that same treatment for everybody else that falls outside of that, so that we know if is it a quirk of the segment or does this work for everybody? If it works for everybody, just implement it in code.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then we'll continue to run the personalization. So yeah, we're always testing and retesting the segment. Yeah.
Good questions, everyone. I got one last one for you. And I'll walk up here, but it's language. Are you only doing English, or is there, do you also have to do this for other languages as well?
Gamma failed me. on the
Oh, yeah.
On the PDP, as you scroll down, one of the things that I was going to call out was underneath the add to cart button is a chat box. Now mind you, we have the floating chat bubble. Don't get me started on that. So on a PDP, we also have the floating chat bubble and this box that says, have a question about this ring. And it literally spills the name and the title in there. And it's like chat, book an appointment. And the only thing that we have on our site in any language is chat. If you want to chat with somebody, you can chat with them in Spanish. Why? I digress. So no, short answer is no, we don't have to worry about that.
Any other questions before we wrap up?
What's that?
Ruth?
Nobody's asked about AI.
So the meeting's not complete. Mentioned AI.
But there's this term that I haven't really understood of agentic versus.
Mm,
And like this conversation, questions and everything, brought me back to like, oh, I used to actually work in e-commerce. And at Things Remembered, which is like a similar
Mhm.
a similar sort of like multi-thousand product sort of, site. And, a lot of the same challenges were being, sort of approached by sort of like very traditional, solutions. And I was that guy in the room saying, why don't we make more pictures on the product detail page look like the pictures people see on social media, things like that.
Mhm.
Or let's add video or do things like that. But like this conversation is really making me understand the really like thoughtful work that goes into presenting something like a product detail page, which people might disregard, but all of those questions that have to be answered, all of that data that you really have to sift through to know what to match to what user.
Mhm.
And then like the term sort of agentic commerce is starting to make more sense to me, which is like, okay, well, I worked at 3 different companies where we did have that floating chat bubble for various reasons and to various levels of success or use.
Mhm.
Dealing with uploading, CSV files to Google every day, so that the prices of the products and looking all of it, just like managing all that mess.
Mhm.
It really would be very simple if there was more of an actual agent on the page just to maybe not just like explicitly ask the question, why are you here, what are you looking for, but to be able to look at maybe 100 different features that a user is exhibiting, without even thinking. I mean, the amount of time it takes to click on an icon,
Mhm.
pop up, all of this is actually like, you can reason against all of that. That's actually data.
Right.
So, what are the discussions? I mean, it's kind of open to everybody who actually like works in the jail.
Personalization factor.
Is that like a job title?
Like, because everyone's all into like, now you're running multiple AI simultaneously to the software program. There is then an additional program that is managing all of the AI.
Wow. Agent orchestration.
Yes, you said,
Well, this is more like
conductor, taking this whole suite of
Yeah.
thousands of criteria.
Yeah.
Hence, more personalizations and decide what it.
They get the AI already against each other, instead of team members.
And running, just some of these other companies, running thousands of multivariate tests based on those throughout a day and like.
There are like LLMs that are just like hyper tiny that can actually run in the browser and something like that. And like, but what's strange is like, that's not what sort of like the e-commerce platforms are identifying as like agential commerce. So it's like interesting to ask like a room full of actual like e-commerce user experience designers and designers, like, what does that mean to you and what that even look like in our business? It's being.
Are you using it?
So yes, I look at it 2 different ways. When I hear when you first said it, I immediately thought people using LLMs like ChatGPT to find things that they need to buy, which I've done. It works. Now the challenge is e-commerce teams, our site, all of us are going to be worried about, okay, well, what happens when that transaction happens in ChatGPT and not on my site? What value does my site have? So we're having conversations about like, what is the value of the website? Why should I come back? In my mind right now, it's no different than Amazon. You've got a brand and you're selling on Amazon. You bought it at Amazon, but you still need them to think about you as the brand. So there's that. So that's where I thought you were going with the agentic stuff. But then all the tools and all the stuff on the site has an agentic part to it as well. Made with Intent, the company that I mentioned, they're doing a lot of that. Like they're using data on our sites and a lot of other sites, running it through an LLM, trying to make those predictions. So time on page, time it takes to scroll to the bottom, how much they're hovering over an image, like they have 800 different measures. I can't do that. I'm not gonna look at 800 different measures. That's why I said when we started, I forget who asked the question, like, how do you get started? We just looked at page views. Like we were like in preschool doing that stuff. And now you've got all the stuff that we're laying on top. When I talked about ideas of struggling versus soon to abandon versus I'm going to abandon, but I'm going to come back. I've got all these different layers inside of Made with Intent. So it takes my personalization and amplifies it. I've got all these different levels.
Is that happening in real time? Like
Real time.
You're sending data to that service and they're sending you back some sort of.
They're just monitoring our site. So every time somebody comes on, it's making predictions in real time. So for us, when we started, low intent was under 6 pages, high intent was 15 pages. Now I can see somebody can go from low intent to high intent on 1 page. All their actions are showing they're ready to make a purchase. So now we have to adjust and immediately get out of their way. Like, what do we have to do to just calm this thing down? Get out of the way. Don't throw the pop-up because they don't need a discount. They're going to buy. Just
That's awesome.
so, yeah, there's a lot. You were mentioning the orchestration. We tested a tool. Michael Kors has this. Other sites have it where instead of a search, you're actually typing in real word searches. Like I'm looking for, in our case, I'm looking for earrings for a night out. And instead of a search results that could bring, I mean, it could be anything based on your style. It's going to bring back things that are most likely to go with an evening night out. And then you can start questioning and asking questions about it. For us, it didn't work. Our customers are a little bit older. I think they think AI is going to take their library card. So they didn't use it. But other sites, it's an effective way to shop.
Know your audience.
Know your audience.
Well, let's give a nice big round of applause.